What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Monday night live stream. Yeah, we got a good one tonight as usual. I'll catch up with y'all in the comments here. Folks are still, I'm gonna wait for some folks to come on in. We got an important conversation tonight talking about the number one most effective way to drop body fat, lose weight, as well as build and retain muscle mass. Going to be talking about fasting, weight loss, fat burn, doing a little bit of math, talking about how it works, why it works, and some of the most important things that you want to do during a fast. And you're going to want to hear this because a fast can be extremely difficult depending on how long you do it for. But there are some things that can make your fast easier to do. So I'm going to go over some of the things that you're going to want to do to make your fast easier. And when it comes to building muscle while fasting, there are some strategies to do that as well, right? So we got to talk about some muscle building principles, weight loss principles, diet principles as far as that's concerned as well, right? So we got a lot to talk about here. So I want to be clear and concise and not drag it out too long. And we'll see if I can get through everything at a decent time. Put a 1 in the chat if you hear me clearly. And let's jump on in, tap in. Sound off where you tuning in from. 1's in the chat if you can hear me clearly. Let me know where you're tuning in from. City, state, country. Right? Province. We got some 1's in the chat here. Appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. Oh, yeah. Getting busy on the channel here, getting some nice growth in. Folks, if you haven't hit the like button yet on the stream, definitely hit the like button. Show the stream some love. Let the algorithm know that this is what you came to see. This is what you want to see. Big shout out to you tuning in from Georgia, Nashville. What's going on? Good to see you. Washington. There we go. Houston, Texas. What's going on? Welcome to the stream. Getting a good Monday evening stream. I do this every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right? So I'm on here going through some things. Cali girl, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Yes, ma'am. How's everything going on the plan so far? You've been getting the week off to a good start? Let me know. John Green, what's going on? Welcome. Plant-based wife, big shout out to you tuning in from Ontario. What's going on? Welcome. Oh yeah. All right. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. I'm not gonna take too much time here. I am succeeding. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right. So let's talk brass tacks here. What we got to talk about well, first of all, before I even get into fasting for weight loss and muscle retention, right? Before I even get into that, as well as muscle building. Started overnight oats. They're amazing. There you go. Before I get into the main topic, talking about the intricacies of fasting and whatnot, we got to talk about first principles as far as weight loss is concerned. Now, when it comes to weight loss, out of all the weight that you lose, it's mainly going to be two things. It's going to be actual fat, right? Fat mass and water. These are going to be the two primary things that you lose when you're losing weight. Depending on what you're eating and how you're working out, the easiest thing to drop is water weight. Your body, about 3/4 of your body's mass is actually water, right? Essentially, us as human beings, we are like a walking, living, breathing ocean. It's essentially what we are, right? We're a outer shell of a human being, and inside it's just a bunch of cells and organs and stuff floating around in water. It's really what we are, right? You know, your brain is like mostly water, your lungs are mostly water, your liver is mostly water, your muscle tissue is mostly water, right? And then there's some exceptions, like even your bone mass is like 22% water, and that's bone, right? Your water weight largely depends on your electrolyte balance in your body and the amount of carbohydrates you consume. Keyword in carbohydrates is the suffix hydrate, right? So every 1 molecule of glucose is attached to 3 molecules of water, right? So having, let's say, a carbohydrate-rich diet will hydrate your body, right? Because along with those carbohydrate-rich foods, like whole foods, for example, I'm not talking about Ritz crackers or something like that. I'm talking about whole foods with potassium, magnesium, calcium, manganese, all this kind of stuff, vitamin C. These are going to be hydrating foods. Just drinking water in and of itself doesn't really hydrate the body. You need the electrolytes to be paired, right, with the water. You need a variety of vitamins and minerals and whatnot to be paired with the water. So the best vehicle for hydrating your body really is going to be your food. Whatever weight you are now is going to be several pounds of that is going to be due to the foods that you ate today and yesterday, right? Then there is your fat. Now, fat cells, you can shrink them, but you can't get rid of them entirely, right? Once you've built those fat cells, you have them for life. Unless you do like lipo or something like that. And so your fat cells will store fat inside, right? It will store excess energy, backup energy. 1 pound of fat is equal to 3,500 calories, which means that in order to drop 1 pound of fat, you would have to burn 3,500 calories of your fat reserve. All right. So an example of that would be 7 days a week, you burn 500 calories of fat. Right. So when people talk about, oh, with a diet plan, you just go 500 calories below your maintenance calories, and that will guarantee that you lose a pound of fat per week. That's the typical calculation that people do. Every day, 500 calorie deficit, and that's how you get your 1 pound of fat burned per week. Now, mathematically, it would work that way. But in practice, it doesn't really necessarily work that way. And the reason for that is because not all calories is made of the same thing. You have calories from fat, calories from carbohydrates, calories from protein. You have the calories from that you ate. You had the food that you ate from yesterday and the caloric value of that, and the foods you ate today. And then you have insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity. And the thing also is the fact that you burn a different amount of calories each day. You don't really burn the same amount of calories every day. Now, interesting thing is that you can burn your daily, you can increase your daily caloric burn just by getting better sleep at night, right? If you sleep better at night, you'll have a better functioning metabolism. So you'll be more oxygen efficient, you'll be more hydrated, and your body will be more prone to be able to let go stored energy, right? Now, if you're sleep deprived, your body will resist any needless caloric burn. And the way that it does that is down regulating your metabolism. So an example would be something like this. Let's say you slept very poorly the night before. If you slept very poorly the night before, chances are today you're probably going to be slower, you talk slower, your physical expression and body language is going to be slower. Maybe you don't speak as loud, your eyes are not as wide, you don't fidget as much. If you slept really well the night before, you probably fidget more, you gesticulate with your hands more, right? You're more upbeat in your energy, right? And what that increases is non-exercise what is that called? NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, right? I think that's what NEAT stands for, right? NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, meaning heat energy, right? As far as thermogenesis is concerned. Then there is your caloric makeup. So you have protein, which is the most thermogenic macronutrient. Carbohydrates is the second, and then fat is dead last. So out of all the macros, fat is the least thermogenic. It's actually the hardest to burn. And in order to increase fat metabolism, you need to increase oxygen availability, right? Oxygen usage. So you have two energy systems. You have your anaerobic energy system and your aerobic energy system. Anaerobic prioritizes glucose for use of energy, especially at the muscular level, like in your skeletal muscle. And then you have aerobic energy system, which you have an availability of an abundance of oxygen, so your body will actually primarily burn fat, right? So this is why, let's say if you're doing resistance training, you're lifting weights, you don't really burn much body fat while lifting weights or doing high intensity cardio. If you're doing really high intensity cardio, that's not a fat burning workout. It's a glucose burning workout. So if you're training intensely and you're out of breath, you're not burning fat for energy. You're burning glucose for energy or stored glycogen inside your muscle tissue. But let's say you go for a walk and you walk 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles or something. The duration of that walk, pretty much you're going to be in that fat burning zone. Okay? Because there's an abundance of oxygen, you're not out of breath, and it's not high intensity, so it doesn't demand a lot of upfront energy, so your body would be more prone to burning auxiliary energy from fat cells, as well as stored glycogen in your liver. All right, it's very important to understand that because when you're deploying exercise, you have to be clear in your intention. Okay, and this matters to the fasting conversation. I'm going to get into this, right? But this is what I'm explaining now is the substrate for everything that I go into later on, right? These energy systems matter, especially when it comes to fasting. And the importance of these energy systems mean much more in practice when we're talking about something like fasting, because your schedule will make or break your results. All right? Because we want to be able to maximize something like fat loss as well as retain muscle mass and build muscle mass. And if you want to do both, your schedule is everything. This is why I'm going through all this with the energy systems. I want to touch on to the keto thing. So people say, well, fasting, fat loss becomes accelerated during fasting because you go into a state of ketogenesis. And the keto diet mimics that, except you're not fasting. Instead, you're just eating a very low carb, high fat diet. And so you're not getting any carbohydrates or glucose in, and it's just all fat. Therefore, your body goes into ketogenesis while you're eating. So wouldn't that be really good for weight loss? And the answer is no. Doesn't really make a difference. In fact, if you go on a keto diet, essentially what you're doing, most of the weight that you're losing is going to be water weight. Here's why. As far as solubility, a substance is either water soluble or fat soluble. It's either or. Can't be both. Nothing is both water and fat soluble. It's either or, right? Zero sum. So water and fat don't really dissolve into each other, right? They're always separate. This is why you have something that's either water soluble or fat soluble. Fat essentially operates like oil. And fat is very resistant to oxygen penetration. It needs to be, right? Now, the reason why in particular that's important is because if you cut your carbohydrate consumption, or carbohydrates, putting an emphasis on the suffix hydration, hydrate, carbohydrate, right? Carbon, hydro, combination, etc., right? when you cut your carbohydrates, you by default reduce water, right? Less carbs, less water equals, well, less water, loss of water weight. It is a common practice amongst bodybuilders that bodybuilders will consume an excess amount of carbohydrates, well, not maybe not excess, but a high level of carbohydrates in their diet in order to have more muscular fullness. And then when it comes time to like really cut and drop body fat and get that lean, thin skin, striated look, they'll try to dehydrate themselves as much as possible by cutting carbohydrates and increasing caffeine, for example. And that's to shed excess water, right? To try to get as dehydrated as possible, right? And mind you, this will drop your libido. It will drop your energy. You'll feel miserable. And a lot of times this also causes people to have high blood pressure. And in fact, high blood pressure a lot of the times is a result of chronic dehydration. So if you got high blood pressure, you should put a primary focus on staying hydrated, right? So when you cut your carbohydrates, all of that water that you immediately lose, all of that weight you immediately lose is water weight. It's not actual fat. Because the math, the solid math behind fat is 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. It does not matter what the rest of your diet looks like. A pound of fat has a set caloric value in a vacuum, period, full stop, right? So just simply cutting carbohydrates is not really an effective weight loss strategy. If anything, you just end up creating more insulin resistance, higher blood pressure. You know, you're more susceptible to fatty liver disease, increased cholesterol, atherosclerotic plaque buildup over time, stress on your kidneys, etc. Low libido, you can also crash your testosterone, excess estrogen, etc. All kind of nastiness that you don't necessarily want. Oh, and by the way, also intense, debilitating, painful menstrual cycles. All right. So cutting carbohydrates, get that whole dehydration thing, not in the best interest, right, when it comes to health. Now, when it comes to muscle building is a thing that kind of exists outside of the whole weight loss thing. It's generally thought that eating more calories means more muscle mass gain, which is not quite true. When it comes to muscle mass, you only need to eat enough food. I won't even say that. You need to have enough glucose stored inside the muscle tissue in the form of glycogen in order to stimulate muscle growth, or facilitate muscle growth, I should say, not stimulate it, but facilitate it. Number one, you go into the gym, you push a muscle or a muscle group hard enough to elicit a response where the brain signals, hey, let's create more muscle protein synthesis and thicken and strengthen this muscle and the bone and the connective tissue. And then once that signal is sent, the only way those materials are then synthesized is if there's an adequate level of energy stored inside the muscle tissue in the form of glycogen, right? People refer to this as anabolic signaling. All right. If your muscle glycogen is depleted, usually it's depleted because you've trained and you haven't eaten enough to put back what you burned. And so as a result, this can then hinder or reduce muscle protein synthesis, which will prevent you from really adequately recovering and building your muscle back stronger and larger than it was before. This isn't necessarily a calories thing. It's a fuel thing, right? So the reason why I put an emphasis on carbohydrates is because the carbohydrates give you the glucose that is then stored in the muscle tissue as glycogen. It just gives it to you quicker. And to me, in an ideal form. If you were to cut your carbs and replace those same calories with fat, it wouldn't really have the same objective. And the reason for that is because when you consume fat, it's going to primarily go to your fat cells, your vascular tissues, and your liver, which can become problematic if you're just doing too much of it at a time, because more fat equals, well, more body fat, and more fat stored in your liver, which means that you run the risk of developing fatty liver over time. Higher cholesterol, because the more fat you consume, especially saturated fat, the more cholesterol your body produces. And depending on how and what sources you're getting that fat from, you can have higher levels of inflammation or oxidative stress, which can then perpetuate an excessive increase in LDL cholesterol, which is known as the harmful cholesterol that is the primary substrate of atherosclerotic plaque buildup and calcification of arteries, right? Cutting your carbohydrates, increasing fat intake to try to make up for those calories can also cause vascular constriction, dehydration, and ultimately high blood pressure or higher blood pressure than normal. Vascular constriction has a cascading effect where you can have constriction of the portal vein that ends up having higher pressure and stress and oxidative stress on your kidneys. All right. So there's all of these other direct and peripheral results from, the increased dietary fat. Now, dietary fat isn't a problem in and of itself, it's just a proportionality. Carbohydrates, well, that's not just getting funneled into fat cells in your liver and your vascular tissues, right? It's going into skeletal muscle tissue. It's being used by your brain, and it's being used quicker because it's a primary source of energy, right? And I'm not going to rely on fat as an auxiliary energy source and try to make it into a primary energy source. That didn't make sense to me, right? Let the auxiliary be the auxiliary. Let the primary be the primary. Even if you wanted to make up for your calories and say you wanted to cut carbohydrates and fats and you wanted to make up for it with protein, well, excess protein will be converted into amino acids. Those amino acids will then get converted into glucose anyway. Basically, the proteins being broken down into sugar to then fuel that skeletal muscle tissue anyway. It's basically just getting sugar just with extra steps. You might as well just eat the carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are protein sparing, meaning the more carbohydrates you consume, the less protein you need. Because now protein won't be being used as an energy source, it'll be being used as a building block for new tissue. I don't want my protein, I don't want my amino acids to be converted into glucose to use for energy. I want my carbohydrates to be used for a form of energy. So I'm very deliberate about my nutrition in that degree, right? So this is why it's important to understand these nuances before we even get into fasting. Now we get into fasting, right? Fasting is the number one most effective way to drop body fat. It is also the primary most effective way to maximize fat loss while minimizing muscle mass loss. This is a big deal, right? Why is that? Well, what are the conditions that we need in order to facilitate weight loss, where you're predominantly dropping body fat? Number one, the first condition that's needed is we need the blood sugar to be low enough. So we need your blood sugar to drop in between 110 and 70. That's where fat metabolism becomes maximized. As your blood sugar drops, your body will mobilize fat and convert that into usable energy, right? That blood sugar has to come down, right? So when we talk about something like type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, one of the reasons why it's so easy to gain weight and so difficult to lose weight is because the blood sugar is very susceptible to being chronically elevated. You improve insulin sensitivity, that blood sugar comes down a lot quicker after eating, right? And then the glucose that you did consume, it gets sucked into your lean tissue cells, your skeletal muscle, to a much higher degree. So you get better blood sugar control by default, even with a diet that is dominant in carbohydrates. All right. So insulin sensitivity is the best thing to focus on building rather than just cutting carbohydrates. Number two is stored glycogen has to be low enough. As stored glycogen inside muscle tissue, inside your liver, depletes, as that depletes, Fat is then mobilized in order to replace that energy deficit, right? So this is the primary. Carbohydrates, glucose is primary, fat is auxiliary. When the glucose, what we call sugar, is low, the auxiliary kicks in. That's why I phrase it in terms of primary and auxiliary, right? As you get deeper into a fast, stored glycogen gets depleted in the liver and the muscle tissue, pretty much all throughout the body, all throughout the body. And as that glycogen gets depleted, fat will then get converted into usable energy and sent to those cells. And this happens all throughout the fast, the entire fast. This happens through, right? If you eat, you disrupt that fat mobilization. You disrupt it, you slow it down, or you inhibit it altogether. And then your body has to wait a couple hours, and then you start easing back into that mode again. But if you're eating throughout the day, you're constantly disrupting that process, right? So when people say, I want to lose weight, so I'm going to cut my calories. No. If you really are serious about losing weight and you want to lose weight in the most optimal way possible, you would do a fast. You could do it to varying degrees. Just the longer the fast is, the more effective it becomes. There is diminishing returns after a while, though, because then, now you're not just dropping body fat, but you're also developing vitamin and mineral deficiencies when your fast is too long, right? And I'll talk about that as well in this conversation, because that's also important to talk about. So you may say, well, if my stored glycogen is getting depleted in my liver and in my muscle tissue, does that mean I'm going to lose muscle mass? Through the intelligent design of the human body, there's a phenomenal thing that happens, this hormonal thing that happens, where your body will release growth hormone. Your brain will signal to your body to release this growth hormone to then preserve muscle mass. So growth hormone becomes very accelerated during this fast in order to protect and retain muscle mass while fat is burned for energy. So your body will pick and choose what it wants to keep and get rid of. This is a survival mechanism that the body has. So when you go through this prolonged absence of food, your body kicks into survival mode, really preserves that muscle mass, and starts cooking body fat for energy. If you've ever fasted for longer than 3 days, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll feel very alert. You'll feel like you can see better. Your sense of smell will improve. Your sense of hearing will improve. You'll have a lot of energy. You'll feel like you're caffeinated, even though you haven't. You'll feel caffeinated whether you've had any caffeine or not. You'll just feel and it almost kind of feels like restlessness a little bit, right? And then there's also the point of, if you're not hydrated enough, you could have a little bit of heart palpitations, right? So stay hydrated. Your metabolism really kicks in big time. Now, the interesting thing is even though your fat metabolism is off the charts, your resting heart rate decreases because your body is also trying to preserve energy simultaneously. So your body picks and chooses and reorients your energy system in order to facilitate survival, through this period of just no food coming in. So it's been also demonstrated in the scientific literature that fasting is actually better for preserving lean muscle mass than a calorie deficit is. I don't like the term calorie deficit. Let's not say that. Let's say a food deficit, a food intake deficit, right? Meaning the deficit is essentially where you're burning more than you're putting in, right? The outflow is larger than the inflow. But when people say caloric deficit, what they really mean is glucose deficit. That's what people really mean, is a deficit of available glucose coming in versus going out. That's what people really mean. There's no such thing as a caloric deficit. You can't develop a caloric deficit. Your body burns whatever it burns, right? So whatever is needed to facilitate whatever metabolic activity is required, that's what your body will burn. right? And it raises and lowers in accordance to that. You can't create a deficit of calories. It's not possible. And that's because calories are not a resource that you can consume. Calories is a measure of thermogenic energy. That's all it is. It's just a measure of heat energy. A lot of people think a calorie is a thing you eat. It's not a thing you eat. It's a measure of, it's a measurement, right? Okay, so let's just clear that out right quick. So fasting, when we talk about fasting, well, should it be 16 hours, 20 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, 72? How long should the fast be? How do I know which one is the right one for me? That would depend on how much weight you have to lose, what your schedule is like, and how much experience you have with fasting. And it also depends on where you're starting from. In my experience, one thing I come to realize is people who barely eat, meaning you've been trying to lose weight for an extremely long period of time. So you eat once or twice a day. If you eat once or twice a day, you're probably eating maybe 1,200 calories a day, maybe 1,000, maybe less than that. But essentially, if you're eating 2 meals a day, each meal is probably like 6, maybe 700 calories. If 2 meals are 700 calories, you get 1,400. If you're eating 600 calories per meal, it's 1,200, etc. So it's not much food coming in. Now, when people eat 2 meals a day, typically what they do is they'll eat breakfast and then dinner. And you're not doing anything well when you do this, because you're not fasting well and you're not well fed either when you're doing this. The fasting window is not long enough for glycogen to be depleted to any meaningful level. So the fast isn't really that long, and you're not eating that much either. So it's a very steep calorie deficit or steep food intake with no benefits. It would make more sense to have 2 meals where you have like an early breakfast and a late breakfast, or let's say your first meal is at 7 and the second one is like 12 or 11 o'clock and you're done for the rest of the day. That would mean that you have a longer fast. So now if you do that, that's when you can do a 20-hour fast on a daily basis. You'll get more weight loss just from taking that last meal and just moving it to a much earlier portion of the day. That alone would extend your fast to a much longer period of time, and that will allow you to spend more time getting into a deeper and deeper and deeper fast, which would yield greater fat loss results. This is purely just about schedule. You're not even changing the amount of food that you eat. You're just taking one meal and you're just rescheduling it. That alone would make a significant difference. But here's the thing. If you've been chronically under eating for a very prolonged period of time, it's not just a lack of glucose or available energy that you have to worry about, because you're not just cutting carbs or cutting fats or cutting protein. You're also cutting vitamins, cutting minerals. You're cutting micronutrients. You're cutting electrolytes, which means you're also cutting your hydration levels. And if you cut for weeks, months, and even years, just chronically under eating constantly all the time, this will destroy your sleep quality. This will destroy your ability to both build or retain muscle mass, right? And over time, this will diminish your mental health. Everything just goes downhill. You could even end up having high blood pressure, hormonal issues, infertility, all types of stuff. You can get a lot of nasty problems from chronically under eating. So if a person was to come to me and say, hey, I want to lose weight. I've been eating twice a day. I barely eat. I'm still not losing weight. I feel tired all the time, miserable, anxiety, depression, all this type of stuff, right? I'm not going to say, hey, we're going to do a water fast. I'm not doing that. Because now what you have to do is you have to get used to adequately nourishing your body. You have to get used to adequate, consistent nutrition. And a lot of people who've been struggling to lose weight are in this boat. So I'll put people on a diet plan where they'll be eating sometimes even double what they were, if not 50% more than they were, or 75% more than they were, and then weight starts coming off on the scale. And you may say, well, how do you eat more and lose weight? That's because human beings are not just thermogenic, right? You're not a gas tank. You're not like a car that just burns gas and then, and that's it. Much more complicated than that. Human beings are chemical, hormonal. You have all these shifting levels of hormones. You got adrenaline and cortisol and estrogen, testosterone and progesterone, right? You've got endorphins, you got serotonin, dopamine, you got all these different hormones, right? Insulin like growth factor, you got all these different hormones that are released from all the organs in your body. I mean, just hormones just released from everywhere in the body, right? And those hormones will manipulate the way your body uses energy. It will manipulate your behavior and all types of stuff. And chronically undereating causes hormonal disruption. This will destabilize your hormonal system in a massive way and destroy your sleep quality. And if you lose your sleep quality, it'll be extraordinarily difficult to drop body fat. Now you say, well, I thought if your blood sugar drops low enough, you'll be able to lose weight. Here's the problem. Hormonal disruption compounded with poor sleep quality equals burning muscle and bone mass for fuel. A lack of calcium will cause you to leach calcium from your bones in order to be able to maintain your nervous system, muscular contractions, and blood pH level. Poor sleep quality, hormonal instability, excess estrogen and cortisol will lead to muscle mass loss. So the muscles in your body will now end up becoming a major fuel source for your body. So then you end up being fat adaptive, where now your body is hoarding fat and burning everything else, doing the opposite of what you want to do. And this is what you get from chronically undereating, right? So this is why I wouldn't start you with a fast if this is your problem. If that's you, you got to start from a higher place. You got to refuel your body, correct your hormones with adequate nutrition first. Then once you reach that high level, you gain your sleep quality back, you're working out, you got stable brain chemistry, everything's up here. Now this is recovery. That's what this is. Your nutrition is going to pick you up here. And then when you get into a fast and you have that drop, your body will respond with fat metabolism rather than just breaking down the proteins in your muscle tissue. Right? So you have to correct your hormones first. You have to eat your way out of that. So more magnesium in your diet, more potassium, more calcium, more copper, more iron, more selenium, more iodine, more boron, right? More manganese, etc. More zinc. You got to restock your body. All the B vitamins, vitamin C, beta carotene conversion into vitamin A, K1 converting into K2, all of that. More tryptophan converting into serotonin, improving your mental health and sleep quality, right? Resensitizing dopamine, etc. That's what your food does. You can't fast your way into that. That would take, I would say, to do that for, depending on how long you've been underfed, do it for 4 weeks. Develop a good relationship with food first. Once you develop a good relationship with food first, then you can start getting into more of a fasting strategy. But then you ease your way into it. So let's talk about how to ease your way into it. You do the 4 weeks, see how you feel. Maybe even get a blood test and see where your levels are at. If you got all green lights, everything's on par, as far as your nutrients, then you can be like, all right, let's get into a fast. So maybe you've been eating 4 meals a day, maybe just 3. You can literally just shift your schedule where you start eating earlier and you finish eating earlier. So let's say you start eating at 7 o'clock, you finish eating at like 2 o'clock, fast the rest of the day. This is a great form of intermittent fasting known as early time restricted feeding. When it comes to intermittent fasting, there's 2 types of fasting: early time restricted feeding, midday time restricted feeding. Right? Early time restricted feeding on paper, as far as the literature is concerned, seems to have the edge out on midday. Midday time restricted feeding works also, but early time restricted feeding just works a bit better. Also, if you want to get to bed at a decent time, it's easier to get to bed earlier when you finish eating earlier, right? But what you don't want to do is finish eating earlier and then go to bed later, right? Because then you're more likely to feel hungry before bed. So it's very important that you adequately manage your schedule. Now, let's say you do that for the next 4 weeks afterwards, and you'll see weight loss results from that as well. It won't be extreme weight loss results just from that in and of itself, because it does matter your diet plan, what you eat, and then how you train and stuff. But that's a good way to get into fasting in and of itself, getting used to feeling hunger and then not responding to it. Because a lot of people, when they feel hungry, they're like, oh, I gotta eat, I'm starving. You're not starving, you just feel hungry. The reason why you feel hungry is because your blood sugar and your stored glycogen is depleting. When fat is being used for energy, your body will kick on ghrelin to signal you, hey, we're tapping into these fat reserves and we need to fill these fat reserves back up to where they were previously. That's all your body's doing. Hey, we're used to having X amount of fat, and you're now depleting that level of stored fat. So let's replenish it. That's essentially what your body's saying. It's just alerting you. Hey, you're burning through a lot. You're burning through stored fat here. These fat reserves are going to be running low. Now, what happens is if you don't respond to that hunger, if you don't respond to that cue of the ghrelin kicking in, and ghrelin is your hunger hormone, ghrelin shuts off, leptin turns on. Leptin is the hunger hormone that signals to you that you're full, right? So that ghrelin kicks on, the hunger sensation goes away, and then it's back to business as usual. Now, you could drink water, and that could help to turn that ghrelin off. You can drink it, like, let's say, matcha tea, which is a form of green tea, and that would shut that ghrelin off. You can drink water with a few drops of peppermint in it, peppermint oil, right? Food grade peppermint oil. That's also a good appetite suppressant to cut off that ghrelin. You could go for a walk, right? When you're active, if you're engaging in either light work like something aerobic, your appetite will shut off, right? If you're just sitting here doing nothing, then your appetite is more likely to be hiked up. But if you're moving and you're busy, your hunger cue is shut off. If you, let's say you drink water with electrolytes in it, or you drink water with magnesium taurate or glycinate in it or something like that, that will also interrupt those hunger cues, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you get used to those hunger cues. You get used to it. You get used to tapping into your fat stores. Your body gets adapted to doing that. It's this behavioral modification. Your body adapts to what you do the most consistently. This is why predictability and having a schedule is so important. If you don't have set habits, this is chaos in your body. Your body doesn't know what to respond to. This will make you have anxiety, for example. And anxiety often comes from a sense of not knowing. There's no predictability. You don't know where you're going next. And your body doesn't have any idea of what's happening next, because your body's feelings happen on a subconscious level through your parasympathetic nervous system. Your body doesn't really have like intentions, right? It's just responding to the most recent stimuli. So you have to consciously pilot your body and set your habits so that your parasympathetic nervous system can adapt to that. There has to be a rhythm. So you do that, and let's say you want to open up your fasting window after that next 4 weeks. Let's say you want to do something more big time. You want to go for the gold. You can do alternate day fasting. You can go from a 20-hour fast to do 24 hours or 36 hours. If you do a 36-hour fast, this is also known as alternate day fasting. Once you do like 24 or 36-hour fasts, now you're getting into like alternate day fasting. A 24-hour fast is more like an alternate day fasting, and the 36 hours is just raw alternate day fasting. And this is essentially like, let's say you have a full week, alternate day fasting. You eat Monday, you fast Tuesday, you eat Wednesday, you fast Thursday, you eat Friday, you fast Saturday, you eat Sunday. That would be a schedule, right? Monday, you eat 125% of your maintenance calories. So however much you normally eat on Monday, just add 20 to 25% onto that. And then you fast go through Tuesday. And then you eat Wednesday, 125%, fast Thursday. The reason why you add that extra 20 or 25% of a surplus on top of your eating days is to provide a little bit of cushion for not having any nutrients taken in on the day that you're not eating. In my experience, this approach works best for men. One of the biggest differences between men and women is women work really well fasting for 3 days at a time, but women don't work very well for doing the 36-hour fast every other day. Some women can do it and they're fine. A lot of women, they really struggle with that. They'd rather fast for at least 3 days in a row. For men, the longer you fast, that's when your libido starts to go down, you feel miserable, all this type of stuff. Because men don't have the estrogen that women have in order to be able to manage the stress of going through the fast. So estrogen it's a stress relief hormone. So women really thrive in long-term fasts because of the extra estrogen that women produce. So women just tolerate stress better. Also, women have 10% more body fat than men do on average. So if a healthy body fat for men is 10%, it's 20% for women. Okay? The equivalent of 8% body fat for men is like 16% body fat for women. All right? So in any case, for men, it's a good idea to do alternate day fast. For women, you can modify this though. So on the fasting day, your first meal can be 500 calories and then you fast the rest of the day. Or you have 500 calories before bed. So you do a 24-hour fast or maybe even a 26-hour fast. And then you have 500 calories and then you go to bed. Nothing big, just 500 calories. Now, essentially what you can do is like right before bed, you have 500 calories worth of grapes or watermelon, or something like this, cantaloupe or whatever the case is, and then go to bed. And this will also help you get to sleep better at night. Grapes in particular, because they're very rich in serotonin. So if you eat like a couple pounds of grapes before you go to bed at night, you'll get some amazing sleep doing that because of all of the serotonin or tryptophan that gets converted into serotonin in the gut from the grapes. Also an abundance of vitamin C, which is like the most prevalent antioxidant found in food, vitamin C. And K1. K1 is very important for bone density. It's a big deal for bone density, as well as maintaining the tissues of your organs. right? So if you wanted to, like, let's say, prevent or reverse atherosclerosis or calcification of arteries or organs, that K1 is going to be very important. And supplementing with vitamin D3 is also a good idea if you want the compounding benefits of that. Now, for men, you don't really need to do. Men are like kind of geared towards burning body fat anyway, so it's a lot easier for men to burn body fat than women. So for a man, you don't really need to do 3-day rolling fasts. But for women, a 3-day rolling fast could be extremely beneficial. Okay? So I've had women lose a lot of weight going on 3-day rolling fasts. So 72-hour fast, 4 days of eating, 72-hour fast, 4 days of eating, 72-hour fast, 4 days of eating. I've had women lose like 30 pounds in 60 days, like craziness. Now, a lot of weight that you lose during a fast is going to be water weight. Well, I'm not going to say a lot. It's a substantial number. Let's say if you lost 10 pounds fasting, 2 to 3 pounds of that is going to be water. Right? So if you start eating and then you gain back a couple pounds, don't flip out about it. Okay? Plus, if you underhydrated during the fast, you could gain back like 5 pounds. But don't freak out because you're not going to gain all the weight back. You don't gain all the weight back. You just gain all the fat back. You don't gain fat that quickly. Fat gain actually doesn't really, it happens really slowly. Fat gain doesn't really happen that quickly. Because in order to gain back a pound of fat, you would have had to be you would have to get a surplus of 3,500 calories. You're not going to be able to do that in like a day. It's not going to happen. So it's water weight. Right? So your measurements, your circumference measurements tell the tale. All right. Let me catch up with y'all in the comments here because I know I've been saying a lot. So we got some comments, folks. Not double, but hit the like button to like the stream. You know what I'm saying? If you're finding this information valuable, you're enjoying the stream so far, it's a whole vibe. I'm explaining things clearly. This is a game changer for you, this stream. Hit the like button. You know what I'm saying? By the way, real quick plug, I'm putting a lot of information on you. This is just some fairly complicated stuff that I'm talking about here. I'm breaking down fat metabolism, glucose metabolism, glycogen storage, the energy systems. I talked about a lot tonight, I understand. But I also do one-on-one calls, okay? So if you want to book a call with me, you have specific issues, you want a game plan for you and your issue specifically, you want more clarity, I put a link in the description where you can book a call with me. You can pick your day and time to get on my schedule and have an hour-long call with me. And we get to talk about whatever specifically you want to talk about. You want to talk about high blood pressure. You want to talk about diabetes, insulin resistance. You want to talk about autoimmune disorders, hypothyroidism, debilitating menstrual cycle, gaining muscle, gaining weight, losing weight, whatever the case is you want to talk about. We got a full 60 minutes to talk about it. And you pick your time and day that you want to do that. So the link to that will be in the description. All right. Now let me catch up with y'all in the comments here. Look at that. We got some folks up in here. Hit that like button, y'all. D, what's going on? Good evening. Good to see you in here. How you feeling tonight? Do I have workout videos? Actually, I do. And you know what? For members, right now for members, and I'm not going to keep this up a whole lot longer, but everyone who becomes a member of Tribe by Noir, you get access to my vegan nutrition course, my training plans, exercise video tutorials. You get access to the support group that I have over on Discord. And every Thursday night, I go into the live chat with Tribe members, and I get to talk to everybody specifically in a group call in the Discord, right? You also get access to my recipes and things like that. You feeling better today? There you go. Let me tell you, you've been getting all type of challenges thrown at you. I hear you. Ginger helps to relieve irritation in the gut and may help to decrease gastric contraction. True. Ginger tea, turmeric tea. What I like to do, one of my favorite teas is taking a quarter teaspoon of ginger powder and a quarter teaspoon of turmeric powder, putting them in the mug and filling the mug with 8 ounces of hot water for tea. That is my favorite tea right there. And I put 2 pinches of cayenne pepper in there. And that also helps really well. That's one of my favorite teas right there. So if you need energy or you feel sick or you got high blood pressure, you're diabetic, that's a good tea to do. All right. Would you recommend overnight oats to someone dealing with rheumatoid arthritis? Yeah, I would. Um, Rheumatoid arthritis too. It really depends. I mean, the key really is reducing oxidative stress in the gut too. So a raw diet or a high raw diet works really well for rheumatoid arthritis. Um, so I mean, having an abundance of fruits, raw fruits, tender leafy greens, sweet potato, that's a good one. Also, if you have rheumatoid arthritis, turmeric and ginger and hibiscus tea. Those are going to be some important teas for you right there. Also, starting your day off with sea moss, right? Sea moss capsules, sea moss gel, right, to really mineralize your body. That's a big deal. What natural remedies could I use for acid reflux? Um, well, here's what I will say. Because with acid reflux, a lot of the times it's a result of not having enough magnesium in your diet. Having an acidic diet, generally speaking, so that when you have like a more alkalizing diet, you have a magnesium and potassium rich diet, you have a vitamin C rich diet, you have an abundance of fiber in your diet, specifically foods with soluble fiber, like them rolled oats, for example. They come with this soluble fiber that gives your stomach a nice coating, and it creates an environment too in your stomach where you don't have this backup of acids into your lower esophagus as a result of having way too much stomach acid in there, right? Reducing dietary fat, it could be a natural remedy for acid reflux. So if you have a more carbohydrate, water-rich diet and you consume less less dietary fat, that would also improve the whole acid reflux situation as well, right? So there's a lot of remedies to it for sure. So that's just a few. Yo, Milwaukee in the chat, what's going on? Good to see you in here. Yes, yes, y'all. All right. Is there a natural remedy for what is that? Hyperhidrosis. I don't know a whole lot about that actually. Excessive sweating. I think like this is the second time I've heard about that. I don't really have much experience with it, so I don't even know what triggers it or whatever. It could be anxiety or something. I don't know. I don't have enough experience with it. I don't know enough about it to be quite honest. So that's a very interesting question. I don't know. It's one of those things that's so rare, at least in my experience, that I can't really say definitively. I just don't have enough experience with it. As a man, should I stay away from soy because of estrogen? No. The estrogen that's in soy is called phytoestrogens. Phytoestrogens don't work the way that mammalian estrogen is. As far as estrogen, if you wanted to, if as a man you wanted to stay away from foods with excess estrogen, that would be like chicken and dairy, right? Chicken, eggs, dairy. That's pretty much what you would want to avoid, not phytoestrogens. You'd want to avoid foods with mammalian estrogens. If you go to your gym, you go to the men's locker room. If you spot a guy in there with no shirt on and he's got like moobs, is that an offensive term, by the way? I don't know what sounds worse, man boobs or moobs, but like breasts, right? Male breasts, excess breast tissue, right? Gynoclamastic tissue, right? Ask him what are the top 5 foods that he eats the most. I guarantee you, soy is not going to be on that list. right? It's definitely going to be animal products. I know because I'm in the habit of asking, right? So it's like dairy and chicken. A lot of the times it's chicken. It's chicken, 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 chicken. Um. So yeah, that's my advice on that. All right. Would fully raw diet be good for someone with low iron deficiency anemia? I would say so, yeah, because it's going to be a very vitamin C rich diet. So you're definitely going to be able to get the iron that you need, but you're also going to maximize iron absorption with the vitamin C, chlorophyll, and copper content. So yeah, raw vegan would definitely help with anemia. If your diet is like appropriately planned. People don't have much experience with a raw diet, so they tend to not really go about it in an optimal way, right? So, for example, let's say you eat an omnivorous diet where your breakfast is like grits, like cheese grits, sausage, bacon, and eggs. And then you'll have like an apple or a banana. Don't go into a raw vegan diet, be like, oh, for my first meal, I'm just gonna have like a couple bananas and a cup of blueberries. Don't do that. You'd be chronically under eating doing that. You go on a raw vegan diet, you can eat like 4 to 6 bananas at a time. You can eat 4 apples at a time. You can eat 4 pounds of watermelon at a time. You can eat, 1.5 to 2.5 pounds of mango at a time, right? You can be eating like 16 pounds of fruit a day, 20 pounds of fruit a day, depending on what your nutrient goals are, right? So yeah, definitely just the overall approach is going to be fundamentally different because it's so different than what you normally eat. Right? So don't have like this fear of sugar because remember, sugar or glucose is your body's primary source of energy. All right? One of the biggest benefits for like a raw vegan diet that is a fruitarian diet, right, where it's overwhelmingly majority fruit being the main food in the diet. Um it's extremely water rich. It's extremely electrolyte rich. So it's going to be a diet that is going to keep you hydrated all day, every day. And that comes with tremendous benefits. Improvement to your skin, blood flow, hormonal balance, energy, muscle growth, digestive health, gut health, all kinds of stuff, right? I mean, this is a way to decongest your liver, get rid of non-alcoholic get rid of any fatty liver disease, to be quite honest, kidney disease, etc. Right? You'd be able to get rid of all that, right? You got debilitating menstrual cycles, you've got endometriosis, right? This PCOS, hypothyroidism, this will clear it up, right? Depending on how you go about it. But for the most part, like a raw vegan fruitarian diet, right? It's a big deal. It is a massive deal. Stuffed for real, stuffed indeed. So 4 bananas and I'm stuffed. That's right. But you know what? Bananas, very good source of magnesium. If you're magnesium deficient, let me tell you something. You'll be able to get the magnesium levels up quick eating bananas. Now, you can get like what, 50, 70% of your magnesium for the day just from those 4 bananas. Maybe it's 100%. Let me see. Hold on. Because I know they're very rich in magnesium. So how much? Let me look up the correct number right quick while I'm at it. Hold on. Okay, yeah, so one banana, one 7-inch medium-sized banana is 32 milligrams per day. You need at least 420 milligrams of magnesium per day, right? So we do 420 divided by 32. So 13 bananas. So I was off by quite a bit. All right. So yeah, like 6, 7 bananas will give you half. I stand corrected. All right. Also, pumpkin seed kernels and almonds, extremely high in magnesium. So yeah, see, I'm glad I double checked that because I was way off on the bananas. But yeah, um, bananas are a very magnesium rich food. Also, very rich in tryptophan, which is very important for digestive health, gut health, mental health, all that, right? Serotonin's a big deal. Hormonal balance, peak testosterone, adrenal function, etc. I want to become 100% raw vegan. Okay, look at that. She said, said 100%. The boss lady making boss moves. Sunflower sprouts. What about sunflower sprouts? Do you recommend making / taking tinctures like turkey tail? What's turkey tail? What is that? I don't know nothing about no turkey tail. I want to lose weight and build lean muscle mass. I did a 40-day juice detox. Oh, look at that. I know you done lost all kind of weight doing that. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Make sure I covered everything about the fasting. Oh, yeah. Let me get back on track with the fasting. Let's talk a little bit about muscle building on a fast. Let's talk about that. Hold on. My earphones have an accent. This is battery low. I said, what? Battery? Sounds like a cross between a British Trinidadian. But anyways, really good earphones, by the way. Tozo. This is the case. It's like a really small case for the ear set. This is what it is right here. See if it can focus in on that. That's what that is. They need to be paying for me to fit this. I'm over here giving them free ads. But anyways, it's got like these 4 lights that show you the charge. These are some really good earphones. I like them. Good. They're phenomenal. I might get a second one too, so I could just have one just hooked up to my laptop and then one hooked up to my phone. Anyways, okay, let me stop getting sidetracked here. Building muscle on a fast. Let's talk about that. Building muscle. Let's say we're doing let's say we want to do alternate day fasting and we want to build muscle and burn body fat. Well, how do we train? We want to lose weight, but does the fasting, is that going to cause us, will we still be able to build muscle? Well, the answer is yes. So on the days that you eat, those are the days that you train. And the full digestive process takes roughly 36 hours. Right? So let's say you eat a meal right now, your body will be breaking that down and digesting that over a period of 6 to 8 hours. And then your body will be pulling nutrients from it. It will fully be moving through your digestive tract over a 36-hour period. So the peak levels of digestion are 6 to 8 hours after you eat the meal, and then it'll finish moving all the way through your digestive tract and coming out the other side 36 hours after, maybe 24 hours. It depends on what you eat. Raw foods, they come out a lot quicker, right? They digest and break down a lot quicker. Your body pulls nutrients from raw foods a lot quicker. But in any case, on the days that you're eating, those are the days that you train. So for example, if I'm going to go and I'm going to wake up in the morning and train, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to carb up. So wake up first thing in the morning, you eat a few pounds of, let's say, cantaloupe or grapes or whatever the case is, then go to the gym, then come back home and then eat again and eat all of my meals throughout the day and get that 125% of my nutrition, right? So 20 to 25% above maintenance, put my body in an anabolic state for that whole eating day. And then on the fasting day, things will really tape off and I'll slip into fat burn mode. So the training days, that's going to be the muscle building days. And then on the fasting days, those are going to be those are going to be the fat loss days. Now, you can do this a few ways. This is how you can do this. Let's say, for example, train, feast, fast. Monday, you eat and train. Tuesday, you eat a little less. Wednesday is a fasting day. So let's say if I do 2 eating days back to back. So let's say on my training day, I do 125% of maintenance. On the day after training day, I do 100% to 75% of my eating as far as maintenance is concerned. And then on the third day, it's a fasting day and I do 36 hours. After that 36 hours, I wake up, I eat, then I train, and then the same thing. So train, eat, fast. Train, eat, fast. So what happens is essentially I'm training every 48 hours instead of every other day. I love that schedule. It's a phenomenal schedule. So what the training split would look like is you can alternate between an upper body training day, lower body training day, or front of the body, back of the body, or you can do a full body training day and then another full body training day. When you have a full body training day, you have full body training day option A or version 1, and then the second day is version 2. So let's see what an example of that would be like. Let's do full body. It's going to be mainly compound movements and then an isolation exercise before each compound movement. So let's say if I want to train my legs, let's say quadriceps, we got leg extensions or QF split squat with my resistance bands. And then after that, we got back squats. Okay. That's what my quad dominant exercises would look like on the first day, on the first training day of full body. The second day of full body training, it would be the leg extensions, but instead the leg press instead of the barbell squats, right? And if I don't have a leg press, I'll probably do like dumbbell Bulgarian split squats or with the resistance bands if I'm not in a gym at all. Then for training, let's say hamstrings and glutes, we got standing leg curl and Romanian deadlifts. Version 2, it would be prone leg curl and let's say full conventional deadlifts from the ground. Or good mornings with a resistance band. Moving on, let's say we're hitting shoulders. Lateral raises and then overhead presses with a barbell on one. Version 2 would be upright rows and a different variation of overhead presses. If I'm doing chest, let's say I want to hit my pecs. We got low to high single arm chest fly and then flat bench. Flat bench press with a barbell. Version 2 would be conventional chest fly from high to low and then incline barbell presses. For upper and mid back, the first exercise would be pull-ups and then barbell hang row. For version 2, it could be, let's say, lat pull down with a resistance band and pen lay rows or single arm rows. Then after that, you'd have one bicep exercise, one tricep exercise. So parallel bar dips, bicep curls. And then on the other one, it could be tricep extensions and a different type of barbell curl. And then abs, wood chops on one day, hanging leg raises on the other, for example. So you're hitting the same muscle groups on each full body day. The only difference is you're just having different variations between version 1 and version 2. Version 1 you can do in the gym with all barbells and resistance bands, and then version 2 is just all body weight and resistance bands. So you get these two very different stimulations. And that would really maximize for recovery of your nervous system. So you lift your heavy weights on that first training day, because Sundays you eat on Sundays. So in actuality, how that works is, let's say you eat on Sunday and then you eat again on Monday and then again on Tuesday. So you're going to be very fueled on that Monday. That's going to be perfect for lifting your heaviest weights. But in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, excuse me, right after the 2 days of not training, then you do more of the body weight stuff with the resistance bands. You're not going as heavy, right? You only go heavy with the weightlifting once a week, and then the other training day could be like resistance bands and body weight. And that's a good way to manage recovery. Okay. So you basically train Monday, and then you're not training Tuesday and Wednesday, and then you train Thursday, and then you take off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you train again Monday. You'll be able to fully recover and build and retain muscle on a schedule like that. Right. And then, of course, your workouts should be anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes. The workouts that I just named, those should take like 30 minutes. It's only 1 set per exercise. And you push each set as hard as you can without form breakdown. If your form is breaking down, that's it. All right, we're not doing sloppy, dangerous, injury-prone movements. We're not doing that, right? So every rep is clean and controlled. If you can't do the rep with clean form, you don't do it at all. We're not trying to get hurt working out. That's it. Be disciplined, be patient with the process, and just let the results come in. All right. Let me get back to y'all in these comments here. Hold on. Can you have frozen fruits? I don't see why not. That's not in season? Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah. Do you put physical training plans as a tribe member? Yes, I absolutely do. Fatty liver due to fried foods and excess carbs. Now taking teaspoon lemon juice, teaspoon extra virgin olive oil, 2 dashes of cayenne pepper. I don't know, that seems kind of complicated. What are we doing that for? We're doing oils and all this. Yeah, I mean, if you want to reverse your fatty liver disease, I think that having a very water-rich, high raw carbohydrate dominant diet is going to be the thing that does it. Some things that are reverse. I don't think you need to put extra virgin olive oil in anything in order to reverse fatty liver disease. Having tea with ginger, having tea with lemon or, ginger, turmeric, cayenne pepper, those things work. Yeah. This is great. Definitely trying this. There we go. That is the what? The Andreas Moritz liver cleanse. Got you. Okay. All right. People got all kind of knickknacks going on. High amount of sunflower sprouts. Oh yeah. Oh, magnesium. Yeah. I love me some sunflower seed kernels too. Sunflower seed kernels are rich in vitamin E. See, that's some good stuff too. Yeah. Andrea Moritz book, Gallbladder, a liver flush book. Oh, okay, all right. I guess trying to decongest the liver in order to free up the bile ducts, right? I guess that's the mechanism behind that, why it's related to the gallbladder. Yeah, increase in foods rich in malic acid would definitely help with that. So cranberries, cherries, grapes, apples, pineapple. Those are some foods that'll definitely help with bile production and decongestion of the liver. Absolutely. All right, y'all. Look at that. I think I got through everything in a decent, timely manner. So, folks, if you've been in the stream yet and you haven't hit the like button, you know what I'm saying? Drop kick and smash the like button. You know what I'm saying? If you want to book a call with me, you can put yourself on the schedule. There will be a link in the description to book a call with me. We got a full hour. We can talk about training, diet, give you answers to your questions, and break down everything that I broke down on this stream and answer whatever questions or fill in any gaps that you may have. I do personalized coaching. So we do the call. You feel like you want to get your own personal plan. I do diet and training plans. Long before I started working as a nutritionist, my wheelhouse was sports performance, corrective exercise, strength and conditioning, performance enhancement. Then I got into sports nutrition, right? Got certified in sports nutrition. Then plant-based nutrition, high raw vegan nutrition, specializing in chronic illness. So just over the years, just tacking things on. So I do both, right? We putting the work in on the ground, building the lean mass. By the way, training and building muscle is a form of therapy. It has a therapeutic effect on human health. One of the best things that you can do to improve your longevity and reverse chronic illness is building muscle mass. All right. Thank you for the confirmation on going 100% raw vegan. Yeah. Well, I didn't get a certification in raw vegan nutrition. I don't know if there is one. That's the thing, you got to kind of like independently learn. I don't know if there's an official kind of like raw vegan certification. I mean, there might be. I have to look for that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like this thing of just the accumulation of nutrition. You know, a lot of how I come up with my diet plans in particular is I do the math. How much of this vitamin, these minerals, these amino acids do you need to fulfill these requirements? How does, you pick certain foods, right? So I'll look at like the nutrient profiles of certain foods. Like I'll look into cantaloupe and say, okay, well, where can I get this or this, right? So cantaloupe, very good for vitamin C, beta carotene, citrulline, things like this, right? Oh, okay, grapes, right? The grapes are very good for the K1, the copper, right? Okay, cool. Kiwi is very good for vitamin E, extremely high in vitamin C. Apples, okay, we got apple pectin, we got malic acid, quercetin, right? So, looking at all of these different foods and, really coming up with the methodology. And I mean, this takes a lot of research and experience and whatnot. At least that's how I've acquired a lot of my information in particular. And so I factor all of that into a plan to make something that's very well-rounded and diverse to cover all of the bases, right? Even with training, right? So, if you go to your average sports performance certification and you tell them, oh, just do 1 set per exercise, they'd be like, 1 set? No, volume is king. As far as hypertrophy is concerned, volume, training volume, sets and reps. The more sets and reps you do, the more muscle you grow. And they teach you that in conventional education, and it comes to find out that's not necessarily true. Because there's a such thing called maximal recoverable volume. So on paper, in a study filled with several hundred or 1,000 people, sure, 16 sets may be the threshold on average in that study, but not everybody can recover effectively from 16 sets, especially if they already have a lot of lifestyle stress on them to begin with, especially if they have poor sleep quality, right? Especially if they have metabolic issues. And also you got to factor in intensity. Is that 10 sets at maximum intensity? Is it 10 sets at 70% or 75% intensity? 80% intensity? What is the intensity level? So there's a lot more variables. And so, you'll have studies that'll give you specific data under a certain set of conditions, right? Another great example, studies done on fructose. Oh, fructose, it's bad for people with fatty liver disease because it goes straight to your liver and it can congest your liver, right? And you say, oh, okay, well, how'd they figure that out? And you read the study, and the study was done with rats, and they were feeding the rats a liquid solution filled with fructose. They didn't even do the study with fruit, and they didn't even use human beings. Or they'll use another study, and they'll have people who are already obese and then feed them soft drinks with high fructose corn syrup. Oh, well, this group had the soft drinks with the high fructose corn syrup, and this group just had the drinks with sugar. And the ones that had the soft drinks with just sugar and no high fructose corn syrup had better outcomes. Well, again, it's not a raw vegan diet, and they didn't use fruit. Right? So there's these different variables in the way that you can craft a study will determine a lot about, what you can glean from that study. So being able to read a study and see what the flaws are and, be able to see where the gaps are, it takes a certain amount of experience with that, right? So you'll see, like, you'll go into the gym and your average personal trainer that's in the gym is certified, but they don't really have the experience that, like, let's say somebody like I would have. When I first became a personal trainer, I would nowhere near the experience or knowledge base that I have now. Not even close. As a matter of fact, I would not take training advice from 20-year-old me, as I am now currently 36 years old. If my 20-year-old self was like, hey, let me train you, I'd be like, no. Right? No. And that's very humbling because now probably my 50-year-old self would probably reject a diet plan from my 36-year-old self. It's a reasonable assumption. I don't know what it is that I would reject, but then again, I don't know just how much more I'm going to learn by the time I'm 50. This is the thing, that the amount of information that you can possibly learn and the level of experience that you can learn is phenomenal. I mean, just within like a 5-year span, you become a completely different person as far as your knowledge base is concerned. And a lot of that you can't pick up in a degree or a certification. I mean, this is why we have PhDs. A PhD literally has to like go and take a topic that there's no current curriculum for, and they got to craft the whole thesis themselves from scratch just to come up with something that really hasn't been done or put in the curriculum before. Right? PhDs are pretty much like pioneers in a given area of study. Because, there's guardrails and limitations, and this is why experience is so important. Right? So I have a very healthy appreciation for that. Oh yeah, yeah. You have to go outside of your official apparatus of education. I mean, you have to, right? I mean, even your average nutritionist, they're telling people, "Oh, you're trying to lose weight. Make sure you don't, avoid fruit because of the sugar." I mean, they're telling people this till this day. They're telling diabetics don't eat fruit because of the sugar, right? And there's data currently out saying that fruit actually helps to improve insulin sensitivity and reverse type 2 diabetes. I've had people personally who I've coached to reverse type 2 diabetes, and we use fruit in large part to do it. It's still telling people fruit diet is bad for diabetics. Really limit your intake, right? Because of the sugar. And what's wild is, what is the number one dietary disruptor of your mitochondria? Or what is the number one contributor to insulin resistance in your diet? Saturated fat. So there's all this fear mongering going on about sugar, and there's no talk about saturated fat. Saturated fat actually inhibits magnesium absorption in the intestines. If you keep inhibiting magnesium absorption, you end up having a magnesium deficiency. And if you have a magnesium deficiency, this in and of itself make you insulin resistant. I'm like, come on, people. Y'all are like got master's degrees in this stuff. Come on. Let's get updated. So you do have to go outside of your official institutions, right, in order to seek this information. Otherwise, you'll just end up saying the same stuff that everybody else is saying. Right? Great example. Your average nutritionist will tell you, oh, you want omega-3 essential fatty acids in your diet? Eat wild-caught salmon and grass-fed beef. They don't even know where omega-3 essential fatty acids even come from. Omega-3 essential fatty acids are not made inside the bodies of animals, right? They primarily come from plants. Specifically, omega-3s are made inside the chloroplasts of plants. The only reason why wild-caught salmon has omega-3 in it is because they eat algae. The omega-3 is synthesized inside the chloroplasts of algae. The only reason why omega-3s would be in grass-fed beef is because they eat grass. The omega-3s are made inside the chloroplasts of grass. These are things you got to independently research. Right? So I can go on and on, but I'll leave it there. Oh yeah, and then there's B12. Right? Where a lot of people think B12 is made inside the bodies of animals. No, it's not. It's made in fresh water bacteria, or bacteria made in fresh water sources. Those freshwater bacteria, they make it into produce and fruit, and they make it into the flesh of the fruit, and they produce the B12. You end up getting B12 inside your fruits. The reason why the B12 isn't found inside your water is because your water is sanitized, it's sterilized, it's desalinated. So your water is stripped of all of its mineral complex, all of its mineral content, and is stripped of all of its natural occurring nutrients. So essentially, you're just drinking empty water. Most people never even really think about that. Fresh water really is supposed to be mineralized. So I'll leave it there. But folks, thank you for tuning in to I believe this is the 8th Monday Night Live. So next week I'll be on at the same time. Every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I think next week I'm probably going to be doing a video review. So we're going to have some fun with that one. Anyways, y'all have a good night. Get some rest. I'll see you soon.